Overwatch is currently in a very interesting state, to say the least. I mean, you and I, as much as the next guy, realize that people playing video games religiously will always have something to complain about when it comes to said video games. But this is the first time in years that I've seen people unanimously celebrate the current state of the game. As far as balance is concerned anyway. Of course, you're always gonna have the nutcases on the forums that want characters like Zarya and Ana nerfed, but by and large, social media is full of praise for the trajectory the developers have taken for the balance of the game. Obviously, as a Zenyatta one-trick, you're going to expect me to really only care about whether or not my main hero is playable. And while I can confirm that he feels much better than he did a few months ago, considering the work I do here on this channel, I have to at least pretend that I care about what Jeff does with the remaining roster. It is still incredibly funny to me when people say Doomfist is a trash pick, as if that's a bad thing. But what about characters we actually want to see played? For starters, not only is Dive playable, it's actually fairly strong right now. There are a number of variations of Dive you can run at present, and none of them feel like you're putting yourself at an immediate disadvantage for the sake of having fun. That's quite the achievement. The most recent Widowmaker nerf obviously didn't do anything to her viability, still allowing body shot bandits like myself to get more value out of her than I have any right to. But because the meta has shifted into a more switching friendly environment, there are actually way more options to combat annoying sniper setups now. Of course, the legendary combos of old like Nanoblade are still viable, and ever since Jeff added the new countdown voice lines, setting it up has been easier than ever without even needing voice chat. But there are also other new combos that reward nothing but the uttermost skillful gameplay to achieve the greatness of the play of the game. Honestly, Blizzard is absolutely crushing it with the frequency of their balance updates, but that also means that for the people of the future that didn't play this game every week to see where these patches are getting us, it almost feels like a piece of history is lost. So I feel like it is my grand duty to preserve these memories and create an online diary that can be referenced for many years to come. Today, my friends, we're going to immortalize the Age of Balance patches, much like we have done on our last episode. Making the holy ascension from Reddit meme to meta play, the flanking Roadhog became the new pop stomp menace of Overwatch. More than ever before, Roadhog really was a one-man army that could put the rest of the team on his back to carry them to the glorious lands of the victory screen. I made sure to frame his legacy in appropriate fashion, highlighting the fact that, as much as Hog really was overpowered, he was also the last bastion of defense against the newly discovered hitscan meta. Unfortunately, that was a very short-lived trend. Jeff came in with a nerf hammer, knocking the pick down to what some would say is a weaker state than he was pre-buff. Rest in peace, Roadhog, protector of the flank and collector of salty forum posts. Of course, this doesn't mean that Roadhog players are going to stop flanking, but they are certainly going to be less effective at it. Which begs the question, what is the new meta then? While the quick play format may not be the ideal environment to find the answer to that question, you can be certain that this isn't going to stop me from pretending that it is anyway. So let's find out if all the praise is warranted and see if Overwatch is actually more fun to play now. With that out of the way, our story today takes place on Blizzard Worlds. As much as I'm aware that we had an episode on this map not too long ago, in the countless hours I've spent playing on this new patch, I just couldn't find a better game highlighting how good this patch actually is. Ancient characters that I haven't seen played in what feels like eons have been made playable through the grace of the Kaplan, so what better place to celebrate their second coming than by playing on Jeff's home map. I'm just going to be so free as to assume that his residence lies within the confines of Blizzard World, because otherwise all of this wouldn't make any sense. Speaking of things that make no sense, the compositions that we decided to play. Delphi was fully prepared to throw for content right from the get-go, deciding that a stealthy Hammond playstyle simply wasn't for him. Of course, I was there to offer what little protection my kid could provide, but he just wasn't meant to survive, seeing as there was a Sombra player hiding in the shadows to make sure he can't get away. If you ever wondered how a single player can lose you at the first point, congratulations, you just witnessed it. The attackers now had all the space in the world to get themselves in position to cap the objective, with me being the only semblance of a chance we had to keep it. Our player disadvantage only got worse when we lost one of our DPS, while also having the enemy Mercy bring back the one player that I managed to eliminate. Of course, I continued to do the only thing I could in that situation, which is being a pretend tank that really just exists to deliver damage in a bigger package. Delphi immediately realized that he wasn't gonna have any fun playing Hammond into a Sombra, deciding to switch to a real tank. Sadly for him, Sombra would continue to be an annoyance, while Symmetra could have an absolute field day charging her microwave on his barrier. The saving grace in this teamfight was me being granted my Ana's undivided attention, as well as an unexpected nano boost that allowed me to boldly move onto the objective without needing Delphi's protection. A high charge Zarya was nothing to sneeze at, much less if they were armed with a nano, and as such, we barely succeeded in holding onto the objective. The only attacking survivor was a poor mini D.Va scrambling to stay alive just a little longer to get her mech back, and as Delphi and I were chasing her down to make sure she doesn't get her will, I really had to combat the urge to use my graviton switch just to BM her. I really hoped that taking out the mini D.Va would end the engagement and give us some time to breathe, but the attackers were not intending to unnecessarily bleed time off the clock, immediately pushing in again as soon as they respawned. A strong offense had to be answered with a stat-fast defense, meaning that Delphi and I pushed up to defuse their aggression as soon as possible. Feeding off of our confidence, Kitaro the Tracer player decided to chase down the enemy Mercy to make sure that this time my effort would not be in vain and every elimination remained unresurrected. But our confidence would be our downfall, as my aggressive choke point hold put me in the perfect position to get deleted by a flanking Zenyatta. To complete the turning of tables, their D.Va tossed her mech into our backline, catching our Ana off guard on what was supposed to be a victorious engagement. With our high damage output and the elimination of our main healer, the attackers figured that they could still win the teamfight despite the losses that their lineup had sustained. Delphi was the last man standing, having to stare down a team of attackers that looked at him like he was the last pack of toilet paper during the start of the pandemic. Once our main tank was eliminated, there was nothing left standing between the red team and the acquisition of the first checkpoint. This round on Blizzard World was looking nowhere near as solid as the last time I was here, leaving me to find out how we can stabilize. The cart was now on the road, and quite frankly, I felt like I was playing against my own team as much as I was playing against the attackers. Yeah, sure, I was currently in the possession of every gold medal that mattered, but that wasn't my point. Minimode, the Sombra player, continued bullying our main tank with nobody but me bothering to poke her, and neither of my DPS were creating enough of a threat to force the enemy Zenyatta to use his Transcendence. If I could find a way to keep Delphi in the game, then certainly we as a tank duo would be able to make up for our DPS's deficit. But before any such thing can happen, we had to bait out Transcendence. Any amount of game sense was enough to realize that Zen was keeping his ultimate for my graviton surge, so I figured that I might as well play into that just so we can get rid of it as a factor. While Delphi and I were playing for the long con on top of the objective, my Ashe was sitting so far in the back on Blizzard World that I was afraid she might end up in Rialto. Personally, I'm not a fan of overly defensive playstyles, primarily because it's really boring, but also because aggression and confidence have a higher tendency of winning me games. I respawned just in time to ensure the survival of my fleeing Mercy, and to prove just how much better it is to play aggressively, Delphi was dropping down from the top ropes with a massive shatter to not only disrupt the attackers but straight up flatten them. The enemy team was very clearly not expecting such a display of alpha chattery, as half of them were ready to fight back, while the other half were desperately trying to flee the crime scene. I really wish that this paved the way for my team to stop playing like cowards, but all my Ashe decided to do was continue proving why they were a waste of a pocket Mercy. So while most of our team was sitting in the back staring holes into the sky, Delphi and I tried to create an opportunity for an early pick so that we can take the next fight with an advantage. But while we were exchanging pot shots with the enemy tanks, their Sombra just randomly decided to roll up behind us and solo ult Delphi. A very annoying play for sure, but ultimately I could take out not only their Sombra but also the enemy Mercy that tried to save her. A res of our own would bring Delphi back to the game, and everything else from here on out was merely cleanup. That last teamfight reinforced our position for good, a complete reset of the enemy team's positioning, giving us the freedom to decide how we want to approach the next engagement. Well, my Ashe already made her decision, which was standing still in the same spot with a pocket Mercy, which the enemy Symmetra tried to take advantage of by rushing the high ground. Obviously, Ashe got away because not only is she a busted character, she also had a flying health insurance that made it impossible for her to die. Isatori was trying to find a way to reconnect with his team, but what he ended up finding was Delphi. Listen, I'm not here to claim that I make the best decisions under pressure, and I can understand that playing Reinhardt into Sombra Symmetra isn't the most fun thing to do, but that shatter could have definitely been used better elsewhere. Once the Symmetra had successfully deleted my main tank, Ashe continued to sit back on high ground with a damage boost to clean up the turrets and eventually hit the air surrounding Zenyatta's body to count for a headshot. You might be wondering where I was while all of that happened. Well, I was coming from the flank when I realized that their Mercy was trying to go for a res. I may not have been able to stop her, but I definitely scared them into blowing Valkyrie for no reason while simply sending the Zenyatta back to spawn. Once again. Getting all these kills was great, but there was still an objective that needed to be stopped, though my chances of taking on Mei and Roadhog on my own was slim enough to where I figured using Graviton Switch to buy some time was a good idea. Since Minimode went from one no-fun allowed character to the next, Delphi saw an opportunity to get off Reinhardt and back on Hammond, allowing him to literally come in swinging to assist me as I was doubling the damage of both of my DPS combined. I could not wish for a better duo in that moment when he served me their Roadhog on a silver platter, not allowing anyone to escape my wrath. Surely there are few things that rival our coordination in Overwatch, meaning there was still a chance to win this game. And the way to do that was by keeping up the pressure via means of taping down the W key in sheer disregard of our team's current positioning. The enemy Zenyatta would learn the value of regrouping and spawn when Delphi rolled up, and as much as I know that my mans was misplaying here, as a Zenyatta main, it's just never fun to see a fellow Zen player get juggled. There was still more than enough time on the clock for us to find a way to lose this game, but so far Jeff has been holding true to his promise of diversity. There have been multiple hero swaps and characters we haven't seen a lot before, so I'm really wondering what the attackers are gonna try to do to get back into the game. This has been quite an eventful match as far as I'm concerned, and I felt good knowing that we finally put the attackers on the back foot. It has been clear to me that this was gonna be a tank diff kinda match, meaning that Delphi and I wouldn't miss out on an opportunity to chase down the opposing Roadhog. Some may claim that us dedicating so many resources to the elimination of a post-nerf Roadhog may be overkill, but when there's blood in the water, the sharks are gonna bite. The enemy team tried to rush in and help that tank, and as much as it was too late to help him, at least the Zenyatta got to avenge his death. It's too bad that we still had a mercy-pocketed Ashe on high ground, proving that it takes neither skill nor talent to fire lead into a bullet magnet the size of the moon. We emerged victorious out of that team fight, but when I spotted Minimart nonchalantly walking out of spawn all on their own, my BM senses were tingling. A real homie is going to do whatever it takes to BM the guy counterpicking their friends, so there was no hesitation in my action of solo grabbing their mate to show that this is not gonna fly. Of course, Delphi appreciated what I did for him and his ego, making sure that the opposing Roadhog could not interrupt the rightful BM that was currently taking place. Though it seemed like said Hog was not too appreciative of a Hammond rolling into a spawn, and seeing as how I invested my ultimate to BM their teammate, they decided to do the same thing to him. Tragic. At this point, there were only 30 seconds left on the clock, with my Tracer being left alone in the front line. It seemed like she was ready to fully disengage so that we can take the fight with our whole team, but an unexpected nano boost prompted her to risk it for the biscuit, dropping a roided up sticky bomb on the Reinhardt for yet another stagger kill. Sadly, this was another annoyance that Mortax, the Roadhog player, had absolutely no problem shutting down, allowing his Mercy to revive their main tank and initiate the final team fight. The wounds caused by a teabag can go very deep, and when one's ego is damaged, the only way to recover is by dragging others down along with them. The enemy Mei went for the longest flank in low mobility history just to get a chance to cut off my escape and soloed me. Escape? Me? Little did Minimart know that I was not one for pressing S. I face my demons head on, and if said demon is the Ice Queen of Overwatch, then you know that I'm topping my teabag Sunday with a hefty dose of BM. But the game was far from over, since both the enemy tanks were still alive and well on the card, and as we already established, this game was most definitely about the tank performance more than anything else. Delphi did not survive his 1v1 with Mortax while I was busy duking it out with our Reinhardt. It was quite the back and forth between us, with me not being convinced that I could take him out as long as his healers were alive. I was right in my assumption, and when their Ana gave him the boost, I knew that the only way to survive was by investing an ultimate of my own. Kitara's performance had only gotten better as the game went on, making use of my graph to blow up the Reinhardt again before full sending it into the enemy backline to end this fight once and for all. Minimart was the only attacker left contesting the objective, and I was glad that Jeff decided to give me the opportunity to eliminate and teabag them one final time before scoring the fat W. But more importantly than that, I made sure that if somebody is countering my homie, they'll pay for it. The end. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of Stories in Overwatch. I know this is just quick play, but here as much as in comps, switching heroes and playing different comps is actually more viable than ever. So if you have been staying clear for a while, I highly recommend you give the game a shot again. Anyway, if you enjoyed today's episode, then do let me know by dropping me a like on your way out, consider subscribing if you want to see more, and definitely hit that bell icon to not miss out on my weekly uploads. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and until next time, peace.